Hey world, welcome to episode 6 of Just TAi with your host Stefan Dior. Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about vibration, the natural law principle of vibration. And that embodies the truth that everything vibrates. Nothing is entirely at rest. Everything is constantly in motion. So sit back and I will reveal this truth. Alright, let's start with the science. Let's start with the left brain a bit. Let's still keep it balanced. Okay? In science, Nikola Tesla, he was one of the greatest scientists to ever walk this earth that we are capable of even knowing a little bit about. And when he died, all of his work was destroyed. He was the person that came up with the first working free energy generator, which he just used the earth as the generator, but all his notes in his warehouse, they were all destroyed by the electric companies that I would guess like Pico and yada yada, because I'm guessing they don't want free energy. I guess anybody would guess the same thing. So let's move on. Well, he had a famous quote that he's known for saying. It goes as follows: if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay? And so here we have Nikola Tesla talking about vibration and frequency, and he's saying this is how we should think. So let's think like that for a while. Also, Albert Einstein, that famous equation that everybody knows but nobody knows have a clue what it means. E equals mc squared. That means energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. In basic philosophy terms, that's the equation that proves that everything that we see, everything that we can touch, is all made of energy. It all equals the same. Alright, let's move on. Matter is nothing but energy at a state of vibration. Okay, at a certain state, and depending on their frequency is where it exists. But we're going to touch on this in a little bit. Alright, you ever hear when you walk into a crowd, or when you with your friend and they're saying, oh, I got a bad vibe from that person, or when I was around that person, I just felt happy. Every time around that person, I feel happy, I feel energized, like I want to do something. Or, oh, I can't hang around that person because when I'm around them, man, they just be talking down all the time. Or if they're not talking down, I just be feeling down. And if you think about what you mean, vibes, that's vibration, because we're all vibrating beings. We're made of matter, so we're energy vibrating. And how you feel regulates your vibrational frequency. It regulates what frequency you're vibrating at. And if you're constantly feeling down, then you're going to give off bad vibes. And it's apparent to most sensitive people, or most people that's willing to speak up about it. So let's move on. Let's use the example of a tuning fork. A tuning fork is when, I'll put it right there. Tuning fork is when you ring one fork and you have another one next to it, or have an instrument that you're trying to tune to the right note. It will vibrate at the same frequency. It won't vibrate until it reaches the same frequency as what the tuning fork is vibrating as. And that's just a little quick fact.
Watch what happens.
Alright, and another example that goes along with catching good vibes and bad vibes from people is the receivers I want to talk about for a second are known as empaths. I consider myself an empath, and I believe that's why I had a lot of problems growing up, because no one was able to put that label on me or be able to identify me as an empath, because nobody knew what it really was. But an empath is when you know the motivations and intentions of other people, and not just that, but it feels though you take on their emotions as if you were going through the same thing. For me, this happens instantaneously. Sometimes before they can even start talking about their problems, I already know, or when I say no, I don't mean it as like a smart ass way, but what I mean no is I can feel and I can think about how they are feeling from their perspective, what they're going through. Another thing about being an empath, it's not a bad thing to be an empath. It's not a bad thing to be sensitive and actually care, because you know in your head you can't help it. Whenever you walk up to somebody, you instantly know how they feel, as I was saying. All that we have to do is get control over that and know what it is. It all starts with knowledge. So once you know that you're empath, learn what all that is. I'll probably dedicate a whole episode to that and get control over it, because there are people out here that know that there are empaths in the aggregate or in the populace, and they can put stuff out there. Well, they are putting stuff out there. They capture those people like fish and mess them up. Mess them up, brain imbalance, spiritual imbalance, physically messed up. Nobody should want that for themselves. So let's work on that together. We learned in episode 5 that there are 3 main planes or general planes of existence: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Well, these planes hold the different frequencies of reality. The only difference between the mental and the spiritual are just different rates of vibration of energy. I don't know why I took that pause. Different rates of vibration of energy. And with the lowest or the grossest, as I read sometimes, being here, the rocks and the minerals and the matter that we all see. And the faster things vibrate, the higher they go up in realities, until you reach the mind of the all, which spins at an infinite rate. Infinity. TAi about that. Alright? To my knowledge, things are created in the thought realm, and our thoughts hold frequencies also. This is how telepaths, people who are telepathic work. They pick up on the frequencies of thoughts. We're constantly emitting frequencies through our thoughts. And I believe things are created by first having it being created in the mental or spiritual plane and work its way down through will until it reaches here, until we're able to see it, okay? Science is finally catching up. I know I brought it up in the beginning, but Nikola Tesla was killed, and all Einstein is known for is creating an atom bomb. But in today's modern science, string theory is the closest thing we have right now to a real spiritual science, once they add the spirituality to it. But string theory holds that at the tiniest level, past the atom, past the molecules, past the protons and the neutrons and the quarks, there are just tiny vibrating things, vibrating strings, and everything that we see are created from these little tiny, right at the tiny Planck length, vibrating string. And they all hold a certain vibration, and depending on that vibration is how they are seen with our physical eyes. Once they're all grouped together and all of that, it all depends on the vibration of that most tiniest string. Look it up. It's one of the biggest things in science right now, because it's opening doors and answering so many questions that scientists have been having. But to the occultists, we know that this information has been out here for thousands of years, but at least now we have some more stuff to back our story up with. Now, to move on from string theory, I want to talk about meditation, but meditating with frequency sounds, with sounds. And what I mean by that is doing whatever you do, meditating, but have earphones in, and there's a certain frequency called a staccato tone. There's about 8 or 13, I'm not sure, but they all correspond with a chakra. They all have a certain frequency that corresponds with different chakras. And when listening to those certain frequencies and focusing on that chakra, it builds up that energy. It helps you build up the energy. You have to use your own will to do anything, or else everything is just symbolic and is nonsense. But if you're doing it and you're thinking action, okay? And do not forget to TAi. Do not ever forget to TAi. I will say that every episode, okay? Don't forget to TAi. All right? We all TAi. But do we really TAi?
In early fall of 1984, I came here to Oxford University to begin my graduate studies in physics.
Some weeks after, I saw a poster for a lecture by Michael Green. I didn't know who he was, but then again, I really didn't know who anybody was. But the title of the lecture was something like The Theory of Everything, so how could I resist?
This elegant, new version of string theory seemed capable of describing all the building blocks of nature.
Here's how. Inside every grain of sand are billions of tiny atoms.
Every atom is made of smaller bits of matter, electrons orbiting a nucleus made of protons and neutrons, which are made of even smaller bits of matter called quarks. But string theory says this is not the end of the line. It makes the astounding claim that the particles making up everything in the universe are made of even smaller ingredients, tiny, wiggling strands of energy that look like strings. Each of these strings is unimaginably small. In fact, if an atom were enlarged to the size of the solar system, a string would only be as large as a tree. And here's the key idea. Just as different vibrational patterns or frequencies of a single cello string create what we hear as different musical notes, the different ways that strings vibrate give particles their unique properties, such as mass and charge.
For example, the only difference between the particles making up you and me and the particles that transmit gravity and the other forces is the way these tiny strings vibrate.
Composed of an enormous number of these oscillating strings, the universe can be thought of as a grand cosmic symphony. And this elegant idea resolves the conflict between our jittery, unpredictable picture of space on the subatomic scale and our smooth picture of space on the large scale.
And it's the jitteriness of quantum theory versus the gentleness of Einstein's general theory of relativity that makes it so hard to bridge the two, to stitch them together. Now, what string theory does, it comes along and basically calms the jitters of quantum mechanics. It spreads them out by virtue of taking the old idea of a point particle and spreading it out into a string. So the jittery behavior is there, but it's just sufficiently less violent that quantum theory and general relativity stitch together perfectly within this framework.
It's a triumph of mathematics, with nothing but these tiny, vibrating strands of energy. String theorists claim to be fulfilling Einstein's dream of uniting all forces and all matter.